The Interstellar Academy of Knowledge was known across the galaxy as a place where young minds from hundreds of planets came to study, explore, and learn from one another. Floating in the orbit of a blue-white star, the Academy's silver towers reflected sunlight like glass shards in the sky. Students of every color, size, and shape filled its halls, scaled, furred, luminous, metallic, or entirely made of energy. Among them, one small group stood out, not because of how they looked, but because of how new they were. Humans. They had joined the Galactic Union only a few decades ago, still adapting to the interstellar stage. They were not as technologically advanced as most other species, but their creativity, problem-solving, and adaptability had impressed many leaders. Still, among the younger alien students, humans were a mystery, often seen as slow, strange, and overly cautious. And so, when the Academy introduced a new course titled Human Colony Management and Survival Strategies, many alien students signed up, not to learn, but to laugh. The human instructor. The class was held in Hall Delta 7, a round room filled with glowing seats and holographic tables. When the students arrived, they were surprised to find their instructor wasn't a tall alien general or an AI construct. It was a woman, a human woman. She wore a simple gray uniform with the insignia of Earth's Exploration Command. Her name tag read, Captain Mara Lynn. Her posture was straight, her expression calm, and her brown eyes sharp as a laser beam. "Welcome, students," she began in a clear, even voice. "This course will teach you how humans survive and build colonies under extreme conditions. You will follow human protocols. That includes our restrictions." As soon as she said the word restrictions, quiet laughter echoed around the room. A tall, blue-skinned student named Vekthar whispered to his friends, "Restrictions? Do they still use paper maps too?" Another, a floating orb of light called Lyrka, pulsed softly in amusement. "I heard humans forbid overcharging their power cells. Primitive safety fear, maybe?" Captain Mara glanced up, her expression unreadable. "You will find that human restrictions exist for reasons. They are not fears. They are lessons. You will understand soon." But her calm tone only made the laughter louder. The mockery begins. There were 7 alien students in the class, each from different species. They came with pride in their advanced civilizations. Vekthar, from the planet Zalen, came from a warrior culture that valued strength and power. He thought rules were for the weak. Lyrka, the glowing orb, was an energy-based being who considered humans fragile and slow. 2 insectoid students, Click and Varu, thought humans were inefficient for not using neural networks to guide every action. And there was Soria, a crystal-skinned student from the high-gravity world of Vareth. She was calm but curious, less mocking, more quietly observant. Captain Mara started the class by displaying a holographic list of human restrictions for planetary operations. The words floated in front of them: no overuse of colony power grids, no communication during storm periods, no energy weapons inside atmospheric domes, always recycle and reuse every material, follow ration limits, even if resources appear plentiful, never modify environmental control codes. To the alien students, these seemed almost funny. They whispered among themselves. Why would anyone limit power use? Click clicked his mandibles. We have reactors that run for centuries. And rationing? Varu hummed. That's for species without resource tech. Vekthar chuckled loudly. No weapons inside domes? Afraid of a little spark? Mara let them laugh for a while. She didn't argue or raise her voice. When they settled, she simply said, "You will learn best not by debate, but by observation. Today I will show you something." The recording, the lights dimmed. A holographic projection filled the room. The image showed a small planet, dusty, red, and stormy. "This," said Captain Mara, "is Arda Fix, a planet where one of our colonies was established 60 years ago. Atmospheric storms, limited water, and unstable magnetic fields made it nearly impossible to sustain life. Yet, humans did it." The aliens leaned forward, interested. In the recording, Humans in gray suits moved across the harsh terrain, setting up shelters and machines. Dust storms howled. Machines failed. Communication signals broke. Yet instead of panic, the humans calmly adapted. They used what little they had, repaired machines by hand, and rationed food with discipline. Vekthar frowned. Why not call for supply ships? Surely they had star vessels. They did, Mara replied, but the storms blocked long-range signals. They were alone for 8 months. The projection showed humans using solar reflectors to melt ice underground, turning it into drinking water. Others used broken machinery parts to build makeshift power conduits. Some even used windstorms to recharge turbines manually. The alien students went silent. The first realization. Why didn't they just abandon the planet? Asked Lyrica softly. Because, Mara said, abandoning a mission means wasting lives, effort, and hope. Humans adapt. We do not leave unless every path has failed. The scene shifted again. A sandstorm raged across the colony. Visibility dropped to 0. Human engineers were seen working through the storm, tying cables, securing equipment. They wore helmets fogged with red dust but kept moving, communicating through hand signals when their radios died. They were risking themselves, Click muttered. For what purpose? For each other, Mara said. That's another human restriction. You never leave a teammate behind. Even if it means discomfort, danger, or waiting longer than logic says you should. There was silence in the room now. Even Vekthar had stopped laughing. The recording continued. Months passed. Storms came and went. But the human colony grew stronger. They built gardens underground, developed oxygen from local minerals, and eventually signaled the Galactic Union for assistance, not as victims but as a thriving settlement. When the Union rescue ships arrived, the humans didn't look exhausted. They looked proud. The discussion, the projection faded, lights returned. The alien students looked uneasy. Soria, the crystal-skinned student, spoke first. Your restrictions. They guided them through all that. Mara nodded. Exactly. Every rule exists because humans learned it the hard way. We make mistakes, yes, but we remember them. And we share those lessons so others don't repeat them. Varu tilted his head. So your restrictions are not about control. They're about survival. About balance, Mara corrected gently. Humans don't have infinite energy or endless supplies. We learned to thrive by respecting limits. Without them, we destroy what we build. Vekthar's deep voice rumbled. Still, you could have used more technology. Why not ask for better tools from the Union? Mara smiled faintly. Because technology fails. Human spirit doesn't. The simplicity of that line made the entire room quiet. The next lesson, Captain. Mara turned back to the console and activated another hologram. This time it wasn't a recording, it was a simulation. A miniature planet hovered in the air, covered with tiny structures and glowing indicators. Now, she said, you will run a colony simulation yourselves, using human rules. The students perked up again. You'll have 1 power generator, 1 water recycler, and 2 food processors. Follow the restrictions. Conserve, ration, and protect your people. Let's see how you perform. Click raised a claw. That's unfairly limited. Exactly, Mara said with a smile. Reality is not fair. Begin. The aliens got to work. They assigned tasks, managed resources, and built quickly. But within minutes, they started breaking rules. Varu overused the power grid to speed up growth. Lyrica expanded energy shields to maximum range, draining reserves. Vekthar constructed too many defense towers. In less than 20 minutes, their colony's power collapsed. Food supplies spoiled, oxygen levels dropped, and half the simulation's population went offline. Mara folded her arms. What happened? Vekthar looked embarrassed. We underestimated the balance. Lyrica dimmed. We thought restrictions slowed progress. And now? They prevent collapse, Soria finished softly. The turning point, Captain. Mara nodded. Humans are not the strongest or the smartest species in the galaxy, but we are the ones who survive what others call impossible. That is why our restrictions matter. They are not chains. They are lifelines. Her words echoed across the silent hall. As the class ended, the students left quietly. No laughter this time. They carried data pads full of notes and heavy thoughts in their minds. Soria stayed behind a moment longer. "Captain," she said, "those humans on Ardazi, how many survived?" Mara turned off the hologram. "All of them," she replied. Because they remembered the rules. Ace. The private reflection. That night in the academy dormitories, the alien students gathered again. But this time, their conversation was different. Lyrka floated gently, pulsing blue instead of mocking yellow. Humans. They turn limits into tools. How strange. Click rubbed his claws together. Maybe they think differently because their world was difficult. Always changing, always dangerous. Vekthar crossed his arms. They are not weak. Their strength is quiet. Disciplined. Soria looked out the window, watching the stars shimmer. Maybe that's why they were chosen to teach us. Not because they are perfect, but because they never stop trying. For the first time, the alien students felt a quiet respect for the human species they had mocked earlier. 9. The cliffhanger. The lights dimmed once again in Hall Delta 7. The silver sphere at the center glowed softly, projecting a deep blue light across the faces of the alien students. Captain Mara Lynn stood still, her hands behind her back as the recording began to play. The alien students, Vekthar, Soria, Lyrka, Click, and Varu, watched closely this time. There was no whispering or laughter. Only a quiet sense of curiosity and unease filled the room. The lost colony, the recording opened to the image of a world unlike any they had seen before. It was beautiful but harsh, a world of purple clouds, golden fields, and bright rivers that glowed under twin suns. The caption read, Planet Venera Prime, Human Expedition Colony Nubruz 07, Year 2329. At first, the image showed success. Humans building towns, farming, smiling, and sharing meals under domes of glass. Their colony seemed peaceful and thriving. But then, the voice of Commander Eland filled the room. We had everything we thought we needed. Energy, technology, food. We ignored the restrictions. We thought they were unnecessary. Vekthar frowned slightly. They broke their own rules? Mara nodded. Yes, humans had grown confident, too confident. They thought experience was enough. But experience without humility can lead to mistakes. The projection shifted again. Numbers appeared, power usage climbing higher, energy reserves dropping faster. Humans had started using more than they needed. They built too fast, expanded too much, and stopped following the protocols. Lyrka's glow dimmed a little. They thought they were beyond their limits. Yes, said Mara quietly, until the limits reminded them they were not. When the systems failed, the recording changed to a view of the colony's control center. Alarms flashed. Power grids overloaded. Machines flickered out one by one. Still no panic was shown, only people working, fixing, adjusting. Then the image froze. The data feed showed atmospheric filters offline. Power supply 6% remaining. External communication interrupted. Commander Eland's voice continued, calm yet heavy. We didn't follow the rules. We wanted progress, not patience. The filters failed. The power dropped and the air we thought was safe began to turn against us. Varu tilted his head, his antenna twitching. Why didn't they just activate a backup system? They did, said Mara, but they had used the same power reserves for comfort instead of caution. They had ignored the first rule, never overuse the grid. A silence followed. The aliens began to understand. The restrictions were not only rules. They were boundaries that protected life from small mistakes becoming great disasters. The human response, but instead of giving up, the recording showed humans working together again. Even when most systems went dark, they found ways to survive. They used sunlight to recharge tiny cells. They purified air using mineral dust. They even broke down machine parts to reuse their materials. They didn't fight. They adapted. Soria watched, fascinated. They make hope from nothing, Captain Mara smiled slightly. That's humanity's real strength. We are not the fastest or the strongest, but when the situation breaks, we find a new way. The aliens leaned closer as the holographic humans built makeshift tools with simple parts. They rationed food carefully. They worked with steady calm, not because they were fearless, but because they trusted their system and each other. Lyrica spoke softly. They forgot their rules once and suffered, but even then they remembered them again. Exactly, said Mara. That is why humans share our failures. Every rule is born from a story like this one. We remember so others don't repeat it. The real purpose of the lesson, the recording ended. The room filled with soft blue light again. None of the students spoke for a while. They all seemed deep in thought. Finally, Vekthar said in a low tone, "Your species, you do not hide your mistakes." "No," Mara replied. "We record them. We teach them. Every restriction you laughed at was written after we paid a price for not following it." Soria's crystal skin shimmered. "So these restrictions, they are not to limit freedom. They are to keep it alive," Mara nodded. "Yes, freedom without wisdom destroys itself." That line stayed in their minds for a long moment. Even Lyrica, who once mocked human fear of power overuse, remained dim and thoughtful. Click raised his claws. "Captain, may I ask, why show this to us? We are not humans." Mara looked around the room, her gaze calm but sharp. "Because these lessons are not only for humans. Every intelligent being faces limits. Energy, time, pride, all have limits. The more advanced we become, the more we forget that truth. I want you to remember it." During the test, after a pause, Mara tapped her wrist console. A new hologram appeared, a fresh simulation world. But this one looked more complex. Mountain ranges, rivers, storms, and energy fields shimmered around it. "This," she said, "is your final test. You will manage a mixed species colony, using human restrictions as your guide." The students nodded. They were no longer joking. This time they wanted to understand. They began their simulation. Soria took charge of power management. Click handled resources. Varu managed construction. Vekthar and Lyrica handled defense and communication. For the first time, they followed the human rules. They built slowly, step by step. They limited their power use, saved every bit of material, and made sure nothing went to waste. When small challenges appeared, storms, limited supplies, they adapted calmly instead of rushing to expand or rebuild. Mara watched silently from her console. Hours passed. The colony and the simulation grew strong, stable, and balanced. When the timer ended, Mara smiled. "Well done." Vekthar looked proud but thoughtful. "It worked. The rules worked. They always do," Mara said softly, "because they respect reality, not pride." Understanding humanity after the test, the students gathered around Mara. Their minds full of questions, Soria asked, "Captain, are all humans like you, calm and careful?" Mara chuckled gently. "No, many humans are impatient, curious, and sometimes reckless. But when we work together, we balance each other. That's why our rules matter, to guide the parts of us that forget caution." Lyrica flickered brightly. "We mocked those restrictions because we thought control meant weakness. But now I see it is strength." Click nodded, clicking softly. "Humans do not rule by power. They rule by patience." Varu's voice buzzed thoughtfully. "That may be the hardest kind of strength." Vekthar looked at the projection of the human colony again. "I used to think humans feared everything. Now I see they respect everything," Mara smiled faintly. "That is the lesson most miss." The symbol of the restriction, Mara reached into her pocket and took out a small object, a metal tag with engraved words. She placed it on the table, and the aliens leaned closer to see. It read, "Rule 01. Respect the limit, or the limit will teach you." This tag belonged to Commander Eland, Mara said softly. "After Venera Prime, he gave this to the Academy. Every human instructor carries a copy as a reminder." Soria's crystal eyes reflected the words. He turned his failure into wisdom. "Yes," said Mara. "That's what humans do best." The students looked at the tag silently. It wasn't advanced technology or glowing crystal. It was simple metal worn with age. Yet it carried meaning far greater than its size. A shared understanding. In the days that followed, the alien students kept thinking about the lesson. They began to apply human-style restraint in other classes. When given more energy than needed, they used less. When facing a problem, they took time to plan instead of rushing. Other students at the academy noticed the change and asked what had happened. Vekthar only replied, "We saw a recording." Word spread quietly through the academy about the strange yet powerful human class. Soon, even older alien cadets began to attend Captain Mara's lectures, not to mock, but to learn. One day, the headmaster of the academy, an ancient being made of pure light, visited the class. "Captain Lin," he said, "your methods seem to have influenced more than a few young minds." Mara simply smiled. "Humans have always believed that knowledge means little without humility." The headmaster's light shimmered. "Indeed, perhaps your people's restrictions are not weaknesses, but wisdom wrapped in simplicity." The final lesson. At the end of the course, Captain Mara gathered the students one last time. "You came here thinking humans were limited," she said. "You leave knowing our limits make us strong. But remember this, what we call restrictions, others may call balance. Every civilization must find its own balance if it wants to survive." Soria raised her hand. "Captain, what will happen to the next class? Will they see the same recordings?" Mara smiled. "Yes, every group must see them. Because lessons are not inherited, they are earned." The student stood up. Lirka glowed bright gold, the color of respect. "Thank you, Captain. We won't forget." Vekthar, once proud and mocking, bowed his head slightly. "Humans may not have the biggest ships or strongest shields, but they have something we need to learn." Mara looked at him kindly. "And what is that, Vekthar?" He thought for a moment, then said quietly, "Discipline with heart." The class ended with a quiet applause that echoed softly through the metallic hall. Epilogue. The recording's legacy. Weeks later, Captain Mara walked alone through the academy garden. She carried the metal tag of Commander Eland in her hand. The night sky glowed with hundreds of moons and stars, a vast reminder of how small and connected they all were. Lirka was explaining resource management through energy flow.